So we're going to be working on a lab on properties of ionic and covalent compounds. Now, you're going to see in your handout, your PDF, that you have an introduction, and then at the bottom you have pre-lab questions. You're going to need to type in those pre-lab questions. Remember, you can write directly on the document because I gave it to you as a PDF. That's kind of the idea of what we want y'all to do, is to type directly on the document. Now I'm going to flip it over, and here you have the procedure of what we're going to do. We're going to start off where you're going to give me the physical description of what each one looks like. Then I'm going to put them in this pie pan, and there's 8 compounds, and then I'm going to stick it on the hot plate, and we're going to conduct the relative melting point of each substance, okay? And we're going to rank them 1 through, and then we're only going to wait about 5 minutes, and then we're going to decide after 5 minutes whether or not they've melted, okay? Then we're going to move over to the station on solubility, and we're going to use a well plate and see whether or not it dissolves in water. Then the final station is we're going to have some solutions already set up, and then we're going to see whether or not it conducts electrical current. The final part of what you're going to be doing is going to determine whether or not it's ionic or covalent based on its properties. Now, you have a data table, okay? And in your data table, you are going to be filling in the information as we do the test, okay? So it'll be a little difficult if you don't have that pulled up, because you'll be wanting to type or fill that out, okay? So let's get started. Now, Ms. Bunch is going to zoom in, and she's going to show you what each thing looks like. So you need to record the physical appearance of each one. All right, so the one she's showing you right now, that's calcium chloride, okay? Now she's going to move over and show you citric acid, okay? That is citric acid. Next is paraffin wax, okay? That's paraffin wax. Then you have sodium chloride. That is sodium chloride. Then you have sucrose, okay? Then you have copper chloride. Then you have unknown number 1 and unknown number 2, okay? Now, I've already made out the pie pan here, and I've numbered them 1 through 8, which is the order in which they're listed in your data table, okay? So now I'm going to put this on here, and we are going to wait for about 3 minutes. So here we have, I'm going to show you kind of what each one is. So right here, that's number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 7 and 8, okay? So now we're going to look to see which one melts first. Now I already see that number 6, if you can tell right here, number 6 is melting. Number 3 has melted. I think number 3 actually melted first. Okay. Number 2 is starting to melt. Now, number 6 did not actually melt. It just turned black or brown in color. It's actually still there. It has not melted yet. So the only one so far that's melted is number 3. Now, number 2 is beginning to melt. I know you're waiting patiently. So we've got it. After 3 minutes, we'll decide which ones have melted and which ones have not.
And I see smoke coming off of one of them.
Smoke is coming off of number 3. All right, number 2 is completely melted. Number 3, then number 2. Number 5 has melted. And number 7 is starting to melt. But as you can see, 1, nothing. 4, nothing. 8, nothing. So we can pretty much assume that those are not going to melt under these conditions, okay? So in your data table, you will put an N for did not melt, okay? Watch your back. All right, now you're going to follow me over, and we're going to do the next part, which is the solubility, okay? So, in this next part, I'm going to get my substances in order, and I'm gonna put a little bit of each of the substance. Remember, we're in order based on the data table. So 1 is calcium chloride, 2 is going to be citric acid, and you only need a little bit, and we're just gonna test to see whether or not it dissolves. Number 3 is paraffin wax. 4 is sodium chloride. Okay, next is sucrose. Number 5 is sucrose. Okay. 6 is copper chloride. 7 is unknown number 1. Okay. And 8 is unknown number 2. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a pipette of distilled water, and I'm going to put drops, and I'm going to go ahead and do this, and then we're going to come back and look to see whether or not it dissolved. Sometimes it takes it a few minutes, and not all the particles will dissolve, but most of them. You want to check to see if most of them dissolve. So it's either going to be a yes or a no. Is it dissolved or not dissolved? So now I'm going to take this other part of my spatula, and I'm going to go ahead and stir these up a little bit. Okay. So now Miss Bunch is going to come over here and she's going to zoom in. Oh, no, it's probably better to do it that way. Now, as you can see, number 1 pretty much dissolved. Number 2 dissolved. 4, nothing happened. 5, it dissolved. 6, partially dissolved. Oh wait, no, that was, so 1 yes, 2 yes, 3 yes, 4 yes, 5 so-so, 6, the copper chloride did dissolve, 7 yes, and 8 yes.
Is there number 3? Did number 3 dissolve?
No, so it's 1, 2, 3. 3 did not dissolve. Okay. So 1 mostly dissolved, 2 dissolved, 3 did nothing. 4 dissolved, 5 dissolved, mostly. You can still see some particles in there. 6 completely dissolved, 7 dissolved, and 8 dissolved. Okay? All right, now we're going to go over to the last part, in which this is a big test to see whether or not it conducts electrical current. Okay? So the first one is calcium chloride. And let me get my distilled water.
Okay. And maybe we could turn the lights out for the...
We don't need to.
You don't need to? Okay.
So here's my distilled water. Each time I'm going to dip it into the distilled water so that we don't get any residue from the one prior as to whether it's going to conduct electrical current. So I'm going to stick it in here. This is the calcium chloride, the first one. Woo, that's very bright,
it does
right?
Show up. Yeah,
great conductivity there. Okay, so we'll rinse that off. Move to the next one. Great conductivity there.
Okay, so that's number 2.
Number 2. Okay. And nothing on number 3. No conductivity.
Let me zoom in on the filament so they can see that. Yeah. Y'all see nothing happen?
Okay. Next is our sodium chloride. Woo. It's very bright, very bright. Okay, next is my sucrose. Alright, nothing happening there. Next is my copper chloride. And last is, or excuse me, next is my unknown number 1. Nothing. And last, this is my unknown number 2. Okay? Now, the last part of this lab is you have post-lab questions in which you're going to identify some of the answers to those questions, and then there's a back part where you're going to classify compounds as ionic or molecular based on its properties, melting point, solubility, and conductivity. And then you have to write a summary of what you learned in this lab for your conclusion statement. Hope you guys enjoyed the lab. Have a good day.